You didn't change your life. Your life shifted without asking for your permission. Let me tell you a short story about a woman. One morning, she woke up before the alarm, like something had pulled her into consciousness from the edge of sleep. The air was still. The same room, the same bed, the same light filtering through the blinds. But something was off. She couldn't name it. Nothing had visibly changed, and yet everything felt different. She brushed her teeth, made coffee, checked her calendar, all ordinary. But the way her body moved, the way she breathed, the thoughts that surfaced first, they weren't hers. Or rather, they weren't from the version of her that went to sleep last night. Something had shifted quietly without noise or announcement. Days passed, and from that morning on, the way life responded to her, the synchronicities, the people, the flow, it had all rearranged. That's how a quantum jump feels when you don't even know it happened. The most radical truth is this: you've already done it, not once, but many times. And if you're listening to this now, you're probably standing at the edge of another. Most people believe change happens slowly, that progress takes time, that healing is a journey, that you have to work to deserve a better life. But what if time was not the path, but the illusion? What if change wasn't something you walked toward, but something you collapsed into the moment your vibration snapped into alignment with another version of you? Here's the paradox. You don't notice the jump when you make it. You only notice the residue of who you used to be fading into the background. And that's why your mind resists this truth. Because the ego wants control. It wants logic. It wants evidence that can be tracked linearly. But the quantum field doesn't operate linearly. It's not bound by past, present, or future. It's bound by coherence, by state, by vibration. And when your internal frequency becomes incompatible with your current reality, the field doesn't argue. It reconfigures. But wait, that's not the shocking part. The shocking part is this: you didn't do it consciously. Science now shows that our memories are not just storage. They're constructs. Your brain doesn't replay the past. It reconstructs it every single time. Meaning, your sense of who you are is already fluid, already unstable, already quantum, and yet, we try to anchor identity into storylines that expired lifetimes ago. You keep saying, "This is just who I am." But that I has already shifted, and you didn't even send a memo. Here's what most miss about quantum jumping. It's not always a lightning bolt. It's not always a psychedelic revelation. Sometimes it's silent, subtle. You wake up one day and the coffee tastes different. You walk through a door and the room carries a strange new resonance. You meet someone and feel like you've always known them. Because maybe you've already lived that version of you who did. Think about this. Have you ever felt a deep misalignment with your surroundings, even though nothing external changed? As if you no longer belonged in a job, a relationship, a city. That's not confusion. That's residue from a self that no longer matches your frequency. And that mismatch, it's your invitation. The door is already open, the jump is already loading. But this raises a deeper question. If quantum jumping can happen without intention, can you trigger it on purpose? Hold that question. Let it burn inside you for a moment. Because to understand how we first need to shatter the idea that you are a single, linear self moving through time. That is the old paradigm. That is Newtonian thinking. Cause and effect. A leads to B. But you're not a machine. You're not a body that emits energy. You are energy that has borrowed a body for a while. You are awareness localized in a frequency band, and that frequency can shift. When it does, the world you perceive shifts with it. Not because the world changed, but because you tuned into a different version of it. Neville Goddard spoke of this long before science caught up. He said, "To be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. But your thoughts cannot change unless you have new ideas, for you think from your ideas. And where do those new ideas come from? From accessing the version of you who already lives them. So the question isn't, can you quantum jump? It's, are you noticing when you already did? Now, I want you to think of a moment in your life when everything changed, but there was no clear reason why. Maybe you suddenly lost interest in something you loved. Maybe a relationship collapsed overnight. Maybe an opportunity came out of nowhere. These are not random events. These are markers of timeline shifts, echoes of the jump. There's a secret most never realize. When you outgrow a vibration, life will either upgrade with you or collapse around you. That's not failure. That's frequency recalibration. That's the quantum field making room for the next iteration of you. But let's go one layer deeper. The reason many don't recognize their jumps is because their identity is still rooted in the past frequency. Your body moved, your energy shifted, but your story didn't catch up. So you keep repeating old patterns in a new field and wonder why they feel heavier. It's like trying to play an outdated version of yourself in a reality that no longer supports it. No wonder it feels like struggle. No wonder you feel disoriented. You're trying to navigate a new map with the eyes of an old self. But what if, and stay with me here, what if everything you're experiencing right now is already evidence of a recent jump? What if this discomfort, this confusion, this cracking open, isn't you being lost, but you being recoded? You don't need to fix your life. You need to remember who you've already become. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the deeper mechanics behind this shift. Because you're not attracting your future, you're tuning into it. And once you see how the field responds to your internal state, not your wishes, everything will start to make sense. You've been taught to chase your future, to visualize, to script, to wait, to believe that if you do enough inner work and vibrate high enough, life will eventually reward you. But what if that model is fundamentally outdated? Because in quantum reality, the future doesn't come to you. You shift into it. It's not about attracting. It's about collapsing into the version of reality where your desire already exists and aligning your frequency to match it. That's the real quantum jump. And here's the mind-bending truth. Every possibility already exists, not as an idea, not as a potential, but as a fully formed timeline, with its own version of you living inside it. Let's say that again, because it changes everything. Your dream life is not waiting to be built. It's already happening, just not in this frequency band. In physics, this is known as the many worlds interpretation, originally proposed by Hugh Everett. The theory suggests that all possible versions of reality exist simultaneously, in parallel, and every decision you make collapses the probability wave into one outcome. But the other versions don't disappear. They still exist. You just tuned out of them. In spiritual terms, every version of you, the broken one, the rich one, the healed one, the awakened one, already exists. You're not creating these versions. You're navigating through them. And your navigation tool is your state of being. That's why Neville Goddard said, "You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not imagine it, not hope for it. Assume it. Embody it. Because your inner state is the selector of timelines." Let's make it even more practical. You are a radio, constantly emitting and receiving frequency. The station you tune into doesn't care what you want. It only reflects what you are. You can beg the universe for abundance, love, freedom, but if your signal says lack, fear, or unworthiness, the field will comply with precision. Not to punish you, but because it's wired to match your coherence. So how do you jump? You change your station. Not with effort, not with struggle, but with a vibrational choice. It starts when you stop identifying with the version of yourself that's waiting, the version that's constantly chasing healing, asking when and wondering how. That version is always one frequency behind the manifestation, always missing the signal, always living in the echo of lack. Quantum jumping is not about becoming something, it's about being what already is. You don't become the healed person. You remember what it feels like to be whole, and act from there. You don't try to attract wealth. You assume the posture, energy, and awareness of the self who already lives in financial freedom. And here's the quantum secret. The field responds instantly, because the shift isn't in the world, it's in the observer. But I've visualized, I've meditated, I've done the work, you might say. Yes. But did you become the version of you who already has it? Or did you just keep wanting it? Because here's the trap. Wanting is lack in disguise. Hoping is waiting disguised as faith. True manifestation is not about desire. It's about memory. Cellular memory of the version of you that already exists in that timeline. This is why most people stay stuck in the loop of trying. They visualize from their current identity, hoping to attract a better reality. But the field doesn't answer hopes. It answers vibrational signals, and those signals don't lie. Let's break the pattern here, Mang, because this is where most get it wrong. You think you need to do more. What you actually need is to become less attached to who you think you are. The current you, the one watching this, is not you. It's a collection of habits, stories, emotional patterns, and neurological circuits. It's a character, a script. And that script has locked you into a specific frequency range. So when you try to manifest something radically new, the script glitches. The jump fails. Why? Because the you that wants it isn't the you that lives it. And that's the incomplete puzzle nobody tells you. You cannot manifest a new reality with the same emotional vocabulary. You cannot jump to wealth carrying the frequency of survival. You cannot access love while vibrating in self-abandonment. And you cannot shift timelines until you collapse the illusion of waiting for permission. Your timeline is not ahead of you. It's available now, in a different vibrational octave. Here's a practical metaphor. Imagine walking into a hallway with 100 doors. Each door is a version of you. Behind one, you're sick. Behind another, you're healthy. One door leads to heartbreak, another to deep love. And the key to each door, it's not effort. It's not years of work. It's your current emotional frequency. Every time you shift your identity, even subtly, you're turning the knob to another room. You might not notice the shift instantly, but the longer you stay in that new frequency, the more the room adjusts. The colors change, the people change, the outcomes change, because reality is not static. It's entangled with your vibration. But don't be fooled. The field is precise. It's not tricked by affirmations without embodiment. It doesn't respond to empty words. It responds to coherence. And coherence means your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your identity are speaking the same frequency. So here's the next level insight. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you agree to be. Pause here. Let that settle in your body. Because the moment you decide, truly decide, to become the version of yourself that lives in the reality you desire, the field begins to reorganize. People will exit, others will enter, opportunities will appear, some will dissolve, but all of it is just the reflection of a new alignment. This isn't magic, it's mechanics, quantum mechanics. And your ability to hold that new identity, to stabilize the frequency, determines how quickly the external reality will reflect it back. You don't have to wait. You don't have to beg. You don't even have to be perfect. You just have to make a vibrational decision. Because the moment you do, the jump doesn't just become possible. It becomes inevitable. In the next chapter, we're going to bridge this inner transformation with the external collapse of particles and see how physics, consciousness, and your biology are all conspiring to show you one thing. You are the observer, and the world is your mirror. Reality doesn't happen to you. It happens through you, and collapses because of you. The universe you see outside is not a fixed thing. It's not solid. It's not even fully there until it is observed. That's not a poetic metaphor. That's quantum physics. And at the center of it lies one of the most misunderstood, yet most powerful phenomena in all of science, the observer effect. Let's go back for a moment to one of the most replicated and mind-bending experiments in modern physics, the double-slit experiment. Electrons are fired at a barrier with two slits, and behind it, a screen captures the pattern they create. When not observed, the electrons behave like waves, creating an interference pattern, as if they passed through both slits simultaneously. But when scientists place a measuring device to observe which slit the electron goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The electron behaves like a particle, going through just one slit. In other words, the act of observing changed the outcome. Pause. Let that land. The particles, The building blocks of your physical world are not set in stone. They exist in a cloud of probabilities, a wave of potential realities, until something collapses them into form. And what collapses them? Conscious attention, which means reality is not revealed by observation, it is created by it. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The same principle applies not just to particles in a lab, but to your very life. Every time you expect, believe, or emotionally prepare for something, you're not simply predicting reality, you're influencing which version of it becomes real. Your thoughts, infused with emotion, act as a frequency signal. And that signal collapses the infinite wave of possibilities into one lived outcome. Now, most people stop at this point and say, well, great, I'll just think positive thoughts and visualize a better life. But that's only the surface, because the power to shift reality isn't in the thought itself. It's in the state that the thought emerges from. That's where your neurobiology enters the quantum field. Every thought you think sends electrical signals in your brain, and every emotion you feel generates chemical signals in your body. When thought and emotion align, they create a coherent electromagnetic signature. This coherence is what imprints your state into the field, but coherence doesn't happen by accident. It happens through conscious choice and neural flexibility. Here's the game changer. Your brain is not hardwired, it's rewirable. And when you shift into a new internal state, your neural pathways begin to collapse old patterns and open new ones, instantly. This is what neuroscientists call synaptic pruning and neuroplasticity. But in the language of transformation, we call it identity death. The you that you've been, with all its habits, reactions, traumas, and assumptions, is a network of reinforced circuits. Every time you feel unworthy, react with fear, or spiral into doubt, you're firing the same synaptic patterns. And those patterns, over time, become your personality, which becomes your personal reality. But here's the twist. When you interrupt those patterns, even once, you send a signal of incoherence. The loop breaks, the system collapses, and in that moment, a new timeline becomes accessible. Think of your identity like a scaffolding made of electrical wires. Your attention is the electricity. Your emotions are the voltage. And the more you feed a certain thought-emotion combo, the stronger that structure becomes. But when you remove the power, when you stop feeding the emotion of the old self, the scaffolding begins to disintegrate. This is what we mean by neural collapse. And it's quantum. You are both the wave, infinite, formless potential, and the particle, the collapsed, crystallized version of that potential. But you are not stuck as one or the other. You are the conscious chooser, and your choice is encoded through coherence. Now let's break the pattern for a second, because there's a trap here. You might be thinking, if it's all about coherence, I just need to stay in a high vibration, but that's not entirely true. Coherence isn't about pretending to be happy. It's not about bypassing your pain. It's about alignment between what you feel, what you believe, and what you intend. If you feel grief, and you allow that feeling to be fully acknowledged, you are still in coherence. If you feel anger, but you don't suppress it or shame it, you are in coherence. It's resistance that breaks the field, not emotion. That's why the work of transformation isn't about perfection. It's about permission, permission to feel, permission to collapse, permission to rebuild. Dr. Joe Dispenza's research shows that when people enter a state of heart-brain coherence, their electromagnetic field expands, their DNA expression changes, their immune system strengthens, and most importantly, their brain waves shift into a theta-gamma blend, which is the doorway to the subconscious, and the quantum field. In that state, the boundary between imagination and physicality becomes thin. You're no longer just thinking of a new reality, you're tuning into it. So what does this mean for you, practically? It means that the fastest way to jump timelines is not by doing more, but by being differently. It means that every time you become the observer of your thoughts without judgment, you regain creative control. It means that every time you drop into stillness, coherence, or emotional clarity, you're sending a cleaner signal to the quantum field, and the field responds with upgraded data. And above all, it means that you don't need to change the world outside. You need to change your lens. Because the observer is the creator, the signal is the selector, and the vibration is the key. Now let's stretch the metaphor even more. Imagine the quantum field as a giant web of infinite doors, each one representing a version of your life. Every time you change your emotional state, a door unlocks. Every time you sustain that state, the door opens. And every time you embody the self who lives behind that door, you walk through, and everything changes. But here's the catch. The old doors don't disappear. They remain available, which means you must choose to keep walking. You must choose to stay in the frequency of the new, not for a moment, not just during meditation, but in the little decisions, the micro choices, the subtle shifts in identity throughout your day. Because the moment you doubt, the moment you hesitate, the moment you return to the emotional home of your old self, you jump back. Quantum jumping is not a one-time leap. It's a continuous dance, a feedback loop between your brain, your heart, and the field. So the real question isn't, how do I shift? It's, can I hold the shift long enough for reality to catch up? In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into this. Because while the science shows us how the field responds to internal alignment, what keeps most people trapped is the emotional gravity of their old identity. And unless you collapse who you think you are, you'll keep projecting that version into every new field you enter. You're not stuck. You're just too loyal to an outdated version of yourself. And as long as that loyalty remains, as long as you unconsciously keep playing the role you've outgrown, the field has no choice but to reflect back the same reality, again and again. Not because you're broken, not because you're cursed, but because you're still anchoring that timeline through identity. Let's be clear, the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you're being. And being is not just about what you say or think. It's about the vibration you normalize, the frequency you choose to embody on autopilot. So if you're still identifying as the one who struggles, as the one who's always almost there, as the one who tries but never fully arrives, then no matter how much vision boarding, scripting, or meditating you do, the field will mirror that default frequency. Not to punish you, but to show you what you're still agreeing to. Here's the truth. Most don't want to admit. You can't bring your old self into your new reality. You can't carry the emotional codes of lack, guilt, or unworthiness into a timeline built on sovereignty. Something has to die. And that something is you, not your body, not your soul, but the construct you've called me, the psychological suit you've worn for years, the persona made of memories, trauma responses, inherited beliefs, survival strategies, the one who knows how to suffer, how to shrink, how to stay safe. That version of you is not real, but it's been real enough to manifest a lifetime, and now it must collapse. But here's what makes it difficult. You think that version is you. You've rehearsed it so well, neurologically, emotionally, socially, that to let it go feels like annihilation. And in a way, it is. Because identity collapse feels like death. The body shakes, the mind resists, the nervous system panics, not because something's wrong, but because you're stepping beyond the known frequency range. You're leaving the comfort zone of familiar suffering. That's why this process isn't for the faint of heart. It requires courage, presence, and deep energetic honesty. So how do you collapse your old self without getting pulled back into its orbit? You start by telling the truth, not the story, not the excuse, not the spiritual bypass, the truth, the raw, vulnerable, inconvenient truth of what that self has cost you. Emotionally, relationally, spiritually, you shine a light on the patterns you've normalized. You feel what it actually feels like to be that version. And then, most importantly, you decide it's over. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. Now. That's when the quantum field listens. That's when reality rearranges. Because here's what most people don't understand. Identity is a frequency lock. As long as you identify as the struggler, the overthinker, the unlovable, the one who needs to heal before receiving, you're sending out a stable signal, and the field is matching it with clockwork precision. But the moment you say, "This is no longer who I choose to be," and back it with aligned emotion and action, the lock opens, the field recalibrates, and reality, like liquid, begins to flow into new form. Now, here's where the shift becomes magnetic. Once you collapse the old self, there's a temporary void, a space of disorientation, silence, vulnerability. This is the in-between, the quantum gap, the vibrational hallway between timelines. Most people run from it. They rush to fill it with noise, action, distraction. But if you can sit in it, if you can breathe in that gap and not flinch, the new self begins to rise. Not from effort, from resonance, not from striving, from embodiment, because at your core, you already know who you are becoming. You've felt glimpses of it, in the way your body lights up around certain people, in the moments of flow when you forget to doubt yourself, in the visions that visit you in stillness. That version of you is not a fantasy, it's a frequency, and it's been calling you home. So how do you stabilize that frequency? You speak from it, you walk from it, you decide from it, before the evidence, before the proof. Because the proof isn't what makes the jump real. The proof is what appears after you've already jumped. Remember, the field rearranges in response to coherence. And coherence happens when your identity, your emotion, and your behavior all say the same thing. I am now the one who. That's when timelines collapse. That's when people vanish. That's when synchronicities increase. That's when the matrix of your old reality starts to glitch, because it no longer recognizes you. And when that happens, you'll be tempted to go back, to return to the version of you that was predictable, safe, known. But don't. Because the unknown you've stepped into is not empty. It's pregnant with the next version of your life. And that life isn't built by hustling harder. It's accessed through vibrational alignment. Now take a breath. Feel into your body. Scan for any part of you still clinging to an expired self. Not to shame it, but to witness it. And when you're ready, type in the comments, "I collapse my new self." Let this be your energetic declaration. Let the words be more than text. Let them be vibration. Let them echo across timelines. Because sometimes, the smallest sentence can close a loop that's been open for lifetimes. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into how to navigate from this space of collapse into the intentional creation of your next version. Because now that the old self is dissolving, the real work begins. Holding the new frequency long enough to anchor the new reality. You've already collapsed the old identity. Now comes the initiation. Can you hold the frequency of the new reality before the world reflects it back? Most people jump, but then panic in the void. They expect the shift to feel like fireworks, a sudden rush of clarity, instant confirmation. But quantum navigation is subtler. It's not a sprint. It's not a breakthrough. It's a recalibration. And in that recalibration, the field is listening. Not to your words, but to your stability of signal. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most don't create their reality. They recreate their memory of reality. Even when trying to change, they're still referencing the past, still filtering their decisions through the emotional architecture of who they used to be. And that's why they don't jump. They loop. But you're not here to loop. You're here to navigate. To do that, you need a new compass, not built from logic or goals, but from vibrational alignment. Because timelines are not places you go. They are states you stabilize. And when your inner state becomes unshakable, the outer world conforms to it like clay around a mold. So the question becomes, how do you stabilize a state that doesn't yet feel real? Start here. Accept that your nervous system will protest. It's wired for familiarity, not expansion. So when you begin to embody a version of yourself that feels foreign, more powerful, more open, more abundant, your body may panic. You may feel resistance, brain fog, self-doubt, fatigue. This isn't failure, it's feedback. The feedback says, you're stepping into unknown circuitry, and we don't yet have emotional proof it's safe. But remember, your body doesn't need proof, it needs presence. So when the fear arises, don't analyze it, don't fix it. Hold it in coherence, breathe into it, anchor into your heart. Come back to the frequency of the self you've chosen to become. And from that space, act. Because action is not just movement, it's message. When you take action from the frequency of your future self, you send a broadcast through the quantum field that says, "This is who I am now." And the field, being holographic and instantaneous, begins to reorganize. Joe Dispenza calls this process getting beyond the known, not just intellectually, but neurologically and energetically. When you do, you enter the space where creation becomes fluid. Now let's talk tools. There are specific practices that can help you lock in the new signal, but none of them work unless they're driven by coherence. So don't do these as rituals for the sake of routine. Do them as acts of remembrance, anchors into the frequency of the self you are becoming. 1. Coherent visualization. This is not daydreaming, it's not passive hoping. It's embodied seeing, creating from a state of inner wholeness. Before you visualize, tune into your heart. Slow your breath. Drop into gratitude, not for something specific, but for the fact that you're choosing a new self. Then, from that space, imagine not just the future reality, but your emotional state inside it. What does your posture feel like? What thoughts flow through that version of you? What does their ordinary day look like? Live inside that frequency. Even for 5 minutes, that's enough to rewire timelines. 2. Scripting from identity. Don't write about what you want. Write as the version of you who already has it. Use I am, not I hope. Describe your life in present tense. Anchor every sentence in emotion, texture, sensory detail. Let your nervous system experience it before the 3D catches up. This isn't fiction. It's frequency alignment. 3. Heart-brain coherence. Drop into the breath. Feel your heartbeat. Place one hand over your chest and another over your belly. Inhale for 5 counts. Exhale for 5. Feel a wave of gratitude build. It may start subtle. Stay with it. As the waves grow, your brain shifts into alpha and theta states, and the mind-body field opens. That's the space where navigation becomes intuitive and the jump stabilizes. But here's the deeper layer. Even with the best tools, the biggest trap is this: waiting for evidence. The moment you ask, "Where is it?" The moment you doubt, you've already collapsed back into the old self, because that question doesn't come from faith, it comes from fear. And the field doesn't respond to need, it responds to assumption. So your job isn't to prove the new self, it's to live it, fully and unapologetically, before the results show up. That's the test. That's the jump. And the more you hold the signal without needing confirmation, the faster the external reality begins to match. Not because you forced it, but because you finally got out of the way. Let's ground this in metaphor. Imagine you're tuning a radio to a specific station. At first, the signal is fuzzy. You turn the dial slightly, static, you move it again. The music comes in, then fades. You adjust, you hold, and finally, the frequency locks. The music becomes clear. That's quantum navigation. The static is doubt, fear, and identity collapse. The clarity is coherence, embodiment, and emotional congruence. And the dial, that's your moment-by-moment choice of who you are. Now ask yourself, what station have you been unconsciously tuned to? And what station are you choosing, consciously, from now on? Because when you start choosing from the future, instead of reacting from the past, the world responds differently. The right people arrive. Synchronicities accelerate, obstacles dissolve. Not because you manipulated matter, but because you shifted vibration, and matter follows frequency. You don't need to chase the new reality. You need to stabilize as the version of you who lives there. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are simply becoming coherent. For the first time in lifetimes, in the next and final chapter, we'll close the loop. We'll return to the real reason quantum jumping is already part of your nature, and how you can begin to live as someone who not only jumps timelines, but leads others across them. The shift is not coming. It's already here, waiting for you to remember it. There's a version of you right now, breathing in another timeline, not hoping, not healing, not striving, but embodying, living, radiating the frequency of the life you once thought was impossible. And that version is not far away. It's not years ahead. It's one vibrational decision away. You've collapsed the old identity. You've tuned into the field. You've stabilized the signal. Now comes the final and most sacred act: trust. Not passive trust, not blind hope, but active, embodied trust, the kind that walks like it already arrived, speaks like it already knows, and breathes like the future is happening now. Because it is. You see, in the quantum field, all realities are now. Time is not linear. It's layered. Every outcome you've ever imagined, every breakthrough, every version of you that's already healed, loved, abundant, free, they're not out there. They're here, superimposed like sheets of light, waiting to be collapsed into form by the only force that ever truly creates: your identity and coherence. This isn't about spiritual performance. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You just have to become familiar with the new frequency, the new script, the new self. That's what creation really is. Familiarity with the unknown, until it becomes your baseline. And when you cross that threshold, life becomes different. Not just in outcomes, but in texture. You begin to feel the quantum nature of things. You notice time stretching and collapsing. You feel guided instead of lost, nudged instead of pushed. Opportunities no longer come as surprises, but as confirmations. Because once you align with the self who already lives the life aligns with you. There is no effort in this, only awareness. There is no convincing, only choosing. You no longer beg the universe. You become it. You no longer chase signs. You embody the signal. You no longer try to be worthy. You remember that you've always been. And this is not just about individual transformation. It's collective, because every time you quantum jump, you collapse an old collective field too. You send out ripples of permission, silent transmissions that awaken others, not by preaching, but by existing in a frequency that reminds them they can choose too. We don't need more content. We need more living proof. And that's what you are becoming. You're not just shifting your life. You're shifting timelines for everyone connected to your field, seen and unseen. So the next time fear whispers, "What if it doesn't work?" answer with, "What if it already has?" The next time the old self tries to wear you like a costume, let it hang. Let it dissolve. Smile with compassion, but don't pick it back up. Because you know now, becoming is remembering. You're not creating from scratch. You're aligning with a version of you that already knows the way. Now this journey doesn't end here. What you've begun in this video, the unraveling of the old, the tuning into the quantum field, the stabilization of your next self, it's only the beginning. And if you feel the call to go deeper, to refine the practice here, to hold this frequency consistently, then there's something waiting for you. It's an ebook called Awaken Your Quantum Power. It is a companion on your shift, guiding you with practical frameworks, methods, and energetic activations to help you jump consciously, consistently, and with clarity. Inside it, you'll also find the practical book, a space to record, embody, and stabilize your new timeline. Exercises, scripts, rituals, real tools, grounded in quantum principle and spiritual science. If that resonates with you, the link is in the pinned comment below this video. Open it not just with curiosity, but with intention, because everything you touch in this field, you touch as the new self. Now take a breath. Feel your body. Notice how much has already shifted just by listening differently. That wasn't entertainment. That was activation. You're not watching these words. You're collapsing them, creating them. calling them into your now. This is not the end. This is where the real movement begins. Because you don't just shift for you shift for every timeline that's ever needed your light. We are a community of conscious creators, of quantum navigators, of frequency holders. And if you're still here, you've already jumped. Welcome.